A few other issues to talk about. Our next question comes from Seb Henbest.
My question is for Senator Bernardi. Senator Bernardi, do you still reject the science of climate change and maintain that this is the result of scientific fraud and a worldwide conspiracy of scientists? And do you think this view is commonly held by your colleagues in the Liberal Party?
I'm only guessing on which side of the debate you have an opinion. Look, I entirely accept climate change. The climate has been changing for eons, and there's no doubt about that. But I have never bought the alarmist hysteria attached to carbon dioxide as driving climate change. And there's, no consensus of scientists, I'm afraid. There are literally tens of thousands of people, scientists who have a different view on this. Now, over the course of time, a lot of the alarmist predictions and forecasts have been proved wrong. When will they finally admit that maybe it's not carbon dioxide? I absolutely support rational, sensible, environmental policies that are going to deliver real benefits. And no one in this room can tell me that the carbon tax, for example, is going to change the temperature of the globe one jot or one tittle. And that's why it's a ridiculous policy to pursue. Our policy, on the other hand, has actually real environmental benefits attached to it. We're going to clean up the waterways. We're going to have more trees. We're going to encourage energy efficiency. Those sorts of things are
And you're
benefits.
doing that in spite of the fact you don't believe that climate change is actually happening, caused by human...
See, one of the things, Tony, is that I'm the great healer in the Liberal Party. That I've brought Greg Hunt and Malcolm Turnbull and Cory Bernardi together to agree on a course of action that is going to have no regrets for us. It's going to mitigate carbon dioxide, which I think is a good thing. But whether that's going to change the climate or not, it doesn't matter. There's going to be resounding
I think you must have missed the fact that
Malcolm
Turnbull said this was a shockingly expensive policy that would get more expensive each time you ratcheted up the percentage that you tried to reduce emissions by.
I'm sure if you ask Malcolm Turnbull whether he endorses our climate change policy, he would say yes, absolutely.
I'm going to just a broader question. Bill McKibben, no consensus from the scientists, says Cory Bernardi.
Look, this is, there's almost nobody left in the scientific community among climatologists, really who for the last 100 years hasn't understood this problem. The molecular structure of CO2 traps heat that would otherwise radiate back out to space. Arrhenius, the great Swedish chemist in the 1890s, put out the first back-of-the-envelope calculations that are very close to what our supercomputers churn out now. But at this point, you don't even need to ask a scientist. What you need to do is say, look at the Arctic, where 80% of the summer sea ice is now gone. We've taken one of the 5 or 6 biggest physical features on our planet, and we've broken it. And the others are close behind. If you go out to Sydney Harbour and stick a pH strip in the water, it comes out a different color than it did 40 years ago. That water is 30% more acidic. Because warm air holds more water vapor than cold, the atmosphere is 5% moister than it was when Cory was born. The result is that we get drought and flood on a whole different scale. And, at a certain point, talk about adult responsibility. Look around. You guys just came through a summer that set every kind of record. You're having 100-year storms every couple of years. What exactly are we waiting to see happen here before we take
This is cherry picking to the extreme, Bill. It's just extraordinary.
This is exactly
what you ignore. What you conveniently ignore is that Antarctic ice is growing. You ignore the study that was released over the weekend that says it's chlorofluorocarbons that have the direct correlation to temperature. You're ignoring the fact that the global temperatures haven't warmed since 1998. And that's not me, it's the Met, it's the IPCC, it's a whole range of others that are saying
this. The last decade we've come through has been the warmest decade in human history, and we now know that most of the heat is going into the oceans, where the acceleration of that warming, studies even in the last few months have demonstrated, is accelerating. Now, look,
How do you explain? Can you just explain that?
The science on this is settled to the point where even people like George Bush or the CEO of Exxon are saying that global warming is real and it's caused by human emissions of carbon dioxide. The only people who don't say this anymore are people with powerful financial ties to the fossil fuel industry. So in this country, okay, can I just interrupt there? So actually, I'm the moderator, if you don't mind. So can I just interrupt there, and I'll pick up the point that he just made. I mean, you say that no one says it except the fossil fuel industry, but of course there was that CFC study done, and a peer-reviewed study done by Canadian scientists that was released in the past couple of days, saying that it is CFCs causing it, not CO2. I mean, sometimes scientists muddy the waters as well, isn't that true? Well, this is a huge field of study, and there are always people publishing new data, but the consensus among scientists is extraordinarily clear. Ask every national scientific body in the world, including the Australian Academy of Sciences. This is why we have scientists. I saw the statement the other day from Nikki Williams, the head of your coal board, saying, "I just flew over the Arctic and it looked fine to me." Okay, the reason that we have scientists is so we can do things like put up the satellites, the cryosat satellites, that demonstrate how much of that ice we've lost over the last 40 years. And when we lose it, when we begin to see these kind of changes, it's not like it's just some interesting thing that happens. This is what drives the weather around the world. The atmosphere is 5% wetter than it was 40 years ago. That means that in dry areas, you get more evaporation and more drought. Look what happened in the US last year, our warmest year that we've ever recorded. We had a drought so significant that the price of grain around the world started to go through the roof, and lots of people no longer had enough to eat. They couldn't afford it. The scientists tell us that from this point on, each degree increase in global average global temperature should cut grain yields about 10%. The really interesting part about this, okay, is that people who call themselves conservative are the ones who say, pay no attention to this. Radicals work at coal companies. People who are willing to alter the chemical composition of the atmosphere and just see what happens are behaving in a way that the most outlandish 60s radical never even considered. I mean, we are messing around with things that are at the absolute fabric of our planet, and we're doing it recklessly and carelessly.
I'm just going to bring in another question so that we can bring in the whole panel.